Hello, everyone, and welcome to a special edition of A2A, Alumni to Alumni. I'm Pedro Guerrero, co founder of the Alumni Society. Our A2A events were designed for members of the Alumni Society to hear directly from fellow members, to learn from their insights and innovations, and get inspired by the talent in our community. Today's A2A event will do that. And this being the final A2A event of 2021, we will focus on recognizing exceptional leaders in our society by honoring the class of 2021. Every year, the Alumni Society spotlights exceptional members, and this year is no different. We selected a group of 10 members that represent the breadth of talent reflected in the Alumni Society. These 10 honorees had a transformative year that propelled them to develop even further as leaders. They did not let anything get in the way of meeting major career and leadership milestones in 2021. Instead, they adapted and got creative. To give you a quick overview of this amazing group, three of the class of 2021 honorees speaking today celebrated high profile career moves, propelling them to new leadership heights. Two of our honorees are working tirelessly to help underserved communities. Another two leveraged their creativity and kept delivering results during uncertain times for their industries. Over the course of two panel discussions, we will talk with them about their career wins and how the changing industries have transformed them as leaders. And we can't wait for you to meet them. Now, I'd like to recognize members of the class of 2021 individually by name. Three of them were unable to join us today, so I'd like to start with them first. They are Juan Miguel Lavista, Vice President and Chief Scientist at Microsoft; Antonio Alvarez, Managing Director and Partner at Boston Consulting Group; Elias Torres, Founder and Chief Technology Officer at Drift. The class members joining us today are Patricia Pacheco de Baez, Market Leader, Chief Operating Officer and Diverse Segment Champion, Metro New York Private Bank at Bank of America; Michelle Freire, Global Brand President for Clinique, the Esther Laude Companies Incorporated; Yvonne Rodriguez, Chief Marketing Officer at Linkto and PhD candidate in business at Virginia Tech; Alex Alvarez, Senior Vice President, Chief Production and Sustainability Officer at Brown Forman; Davina Arille, Chief Business Development Officer of the Latin Recording Academy; Art Ochoa, Senior Vice President of Advancement, Chief Advancement Officer at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center; and Dulce Vasquez, candidate for Los Angeles City Council, District 9. Thank you to the class members of 2021 for speaking today, and congratulations to all of you. You can read more about our class members on the Alumni Society website, thealumnisociety.com. Before I introduce our moderator, I'd like to thank our sponsors for their ongoing support. We could not pursue our mission nor host great events without the generous support of AbbVie, Accenture, AEG, Bank of America, Capital One, Goldman Sachs, KKR, and Meta. Now it's my pleasure to introduce our moderator for today, Miguel Bancarte Jr. Miguel is a member of the class of 2020 who made the list due to his exhaustive efforts in spearheading awareness and ensuring an equitable distribution of COVID-19 testing and resources in underserved communities. He is now addressing social determinants of health and consults on COVID-19 mitigation strategies. Thank you for being here today, Miguel. It's an honor to have you again with us.
Muchas gracias, Pedro, and thank you all so much for being here today. I am thrilled to moderate two conversations with our class of 2021 members. Felicidades once again. Each of our panelists is exceptionally accomplished and fierce. Here with us today, we have Michelle Freire, Yvonne Rodriguez, and Patricia Pacheco de Baez. I know you all are extremely busy, so thank you so much for taking the time to be here with our Alumni Society familia to share your insights, but also to inspire and speak to innovations happening around you. The A2A Alumni to Alumni event series, which I was fortunate enough to participate in last year, are all about sharing insights, inspiration, and innovation with our peers. And this year, your profiles really touched on the central theme of transformation and growth. So I'm excited to dive into these questions with you three. So let's get started. First and foremost, I want to extend a warm congratulations because one thing the three of you share and that have in common is that you all celebrated significant career wins this year. Yvonne, this past January, you became the Chief Marketing Officer at Linkto, which is a huge player in the fintech space. Michelle, you were promoted to Global Brand President for Clinique. Patricia, you celebrated two promotions. In early 2021, you were promoted to Managing Director. And then just a few months later, you were promoted to Market Leader, Chief Operating Officer, and Diverse Segment Champion, Metro New York Bank at Bank of America. So to start off, what are these career transformations and growth opportunities teaching you today? Yvonne, we'll go ahead and start off with you, and then we'll follow it up with Patricia.
Thank you, Miguel. It's an honor to be here with all of you and with Patricia and Michelle on the panel as well. I think the first thing that this has taught me in this transformation is that it's never too late to pivot. It's never too late to make a change, whether it's in the industry you're in or in the industry you'd like to be in. I think we all know the digitization of all industries is inevitable, and we've seen this more than ever during the pandemic. And so, one of the things that we're not often taught early enough, especially not in as we grow up and not in college at times, is that it's okay to change and to adapt and to pivot, even if it's away from an industry that you have known for a very long time, even if it's away from a role that you're very comfortable in. And I really wanted to emphasize this because it is something that we really need to teach our younger generations. And if I were speaking to me 20 years ago, I would say, be bold, be you, a lot sooner, right? And so I think that that's something the pandemic has taught us, and that it's great to take away, right? All these skill sets that we have can transition and can be taken into different roles in the same or different industries, and so we shouldn't be afraid of that.
That's so true. Pivoting, that is something that we have been, I think, to some extent forced to do, right? A lot of us have chosen to pivot, but to some extent forced. The pandemic has forced us to. Patricia.
Thank you, Miguel. I completely agree with Yvonne, and actually, that's actually what exactly happened to me. So I got promoted in the beginning of the year to managing director in GCIB, which is Global Corporate Investment Bank. So I was a corporate investment banker, and I have been in global banking for probably 20 years out of my 23 years of my career. So it was definitely a pivot moment to basically take this new role in private bank, and it's definitely something that I learned through the process was to take risks. That taking risk, it's okay. That getting out of your comfort zone, it's okay. That getting out of your comfort zone is okay, because that's when we really grow. And I'm not going to tell you, and I'm not going to lie, that is easy, right? Especially for those of us who are used to be the high achievers, right? To know the answers, to have the solutions right away. It has been very humbling. It's a very humbling experience for me, given the fact that I have a very, very great expertise. I have many deals that I've done for 20 years or so, lead tables, like we call it in investment banking, right? That is all have been put away, right? From a perspective of now I'm doing private banks. There's a lot of transferable skills. However, I have to reinvent myself all over again. And what I'm finding, what I'm learning, it's that it's incredibly humbling and nerve-wracking, but at the same time, I'm learning so much every single day. And in some days are really great, and some days I'm like, oh my God, what did I do? But I'm very sure that if you ask me this question 6 months from now or a year from now, I'm going to tell you that was the right move to do. I think as Latino Hispanics, we're not comfortable with taking risks, right? Many of our families depend on us. So taking risks is not that, it's not because we don't want to, it's because if something goes wrong, right? Many of our family members depend on us. So I echo Yvonne's point about taking risk is something that we need to be more comfortable with, because the more risk you take in career growth, for example, raising your hands for different jobs is how you grow in corporate America, or even as a small business owner. In order to have rewards, you must take risks. So taking risk has been a key learning for me as well as the process of promotion growth. I think one of the key learnings as well that I want to leave you with is how our community came with us. I was very pleasantly surprised the moment that I announced my promotion to managing director, the moment that I announced the new job. Everybody came congratulating me, but also asking me, how can I help? That's what we need to do as a community. We need to help one another. We need to support each other and celebrate one another, encouraging each other's success in order to keep moving forward our community.
And I think you hit it right on that sometimes fear is paralyzing, and that prevents us from really stepping outside of our comfort zone and taking some of these risks and pivoting. Thank you, Patricia and Yvonne, for your thoughts on that. The fact that you all have been able to accomplish such great things, especially in the middle of a global crisis, is a real testament to your abilities and work ethic. What advice do you have for other Latinos and Latinas who are looking for their next big personal and professional victory, whether it be to take their careers to the next level up, or change industries? Any advice that you might lend based on your recent experiences in charting a new path for yourselves? Patricia, we'll go ahead and kick it back. We'll start off with you again.
Sure, sure. I think that as I was reflecting on this question, because I definitely think that we need to set up a plan, right? A career, we call it a career development plan or a plan. Be sure what think about, reflect about what is that you see yourself within the next 3 years, 5 years, but also be flexible and adapt to change, because things may change, right? Like this job in private bank, for example, I wasn't really looking for it. I didn't even think about it, right? I was just focused on the MD promotion at corporate investment bank. But this different role is something that's helping me grow and expand. So my first suggestion is make a plan and be flexible to change and adapt to the plan. The second suggestion is to make sure you leverage your networking in the proper way, right? Building mentorships and sponsors, as I reflect back through this past year, has been crucial. I would have not been able to accomplish all the things I've done past 12 months without the support of our mentors, my sponsors. And that's not relationships that I built the last 12 months. Those were relationships that I have built the last 20 years. And sometimes we assume, right, that folks, that you should look for mentors and supporters just when you need a promotion or when you need a new job. You should really invest in those relationships. And I know we're all very busy. I know it's very challenging now with COVID, but something as simple as reaching out to say hello, how you're doing, or also thinking through sending articles or thinking through how you can support and help the other person, even if you're more junior than the other person, that comes a long way. I tell you, it was critical, especially the promotion to managing director in GCIB, the support from sponsors and mentors. And last but not least, be your biggest advocate. I honestly think as Latinas, especially as Latinas, we tend to be a little bit shyer sometimes. I'm making a very broad assumption here, to be advocate of ourselves, to tell the story. What is our story? What is our value proposition? What we bring into the table, and what do we want? Don't let any others define your goals, define your next steps. Be your own and the best advocate of yourself. That would be the last advice I would provide on that point.
Thank you so much, Patricia. So I hear planning, building your network, investing in yourself, and also, more importantly, as you said, advocating for yourself. Michelle, I'm going to bring you in to the next question, but really quickly, Yvonne, can I get your perspective on this?
I think Patricia made some really great points, and much of what I would have added would have been along the lines of networking. Reach out to your contacts. Reach out to the people that you know and admire, and sometimes to the people that you don't know. Don't be afraid to connect with people through your connections. But I think also one thing that has really served me very well throughout my life, and unbeknownst to me, in terms of it being something that would be positive, was asking people what they thought my strengths were. Now, I didn't always ask it. Sometimes people pointed out strengths that they thought that I had that I was unaware of. And this is important because it is often a challenge that we have in terms of self promotion. We don't often see what others see in us. And it's important to know what others see in us so we could start seeing it in ourselves. And so I would say, ask people what they think your strengths are. Sometimes you'll be really surprised, and that may lead you into the space that you're destined to be in. That is one of the ways that I ended up in fintech and in this industry. I may have already been in marketing and management, but someone saw in me something that I had not yet seen in myself, that I was interested in, but had not yet seen in myself. And so it's important to get others' feedback and not be afraid to ask how others see you and in what roles they see you, because it's really heartwarming, and it's also something that can inspire you.
Thank you for that. I think it is really important to ask ourselves these questions, right? And kind of plan something out for ourselves. But it's also extremely important to ask others how they see us, because that might allow us to transform ourselves. On the topic of transformation, Michelle, what was the most significant change you saw within your industry in the last 18 months? And perhaps if you can also share what is a lesson learned for you, particularly throughout the adaptive journey that we're all going through right now.
Yes, and thank you for having me here. And I think Yvonne and Patricia made fantastic points that actually I live by as well. So it was so great to hear them speak about it. I think my industry is prestige beauty. So very different than Yvonne and Patricia. But we are seeing a huge acceleration in consumers wanting more from their brands and like looking for brands that they trust, that they know. There's more interest in safety, and thankfully, I mean, that played well for Clinique and our equity. And I think brands really need to kick it up a notch, because they're not just delivering functional benefits regardless of what industry you're in, but it's about really satisfying someone's emotional benefits and like needs and what they need from brands, and that connection, not just a functional product or service. In terms of lessons, I mean, there's so many. I joined Estee Lauder Companies in the middle of the pandemic. I accepted the offer a week before the shutdown, and then joined to lead a team virtually of hundreds of people around the world that I never met. And I'll say, I think empathetic leadership has always been important. But to me, the big lesson was how it has become a requirement to lead. And to lead with empathy. I mean, let's just be honest. We've all undergone a collective trauma as a global community. And you need to make sure that you're giving a safe space for people to say they're not okay, to say they need help, they need support, to normalize the conversation. And I think that as leaders, that I will say that has been the biggest lesson for me, is how much I've had to, that was something that I think came natural to me and I always believed was important, but just having to really lean into that. And in this world that we're all trying to navigate, that continues to change on us.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Michelle. One other question for you. What inspires you to continue being such a strong advocate for your community, and the community defined in whatever way you define that?
Well, I think for me, it has always been about, I believe that I have a responsibility to pay it forward. Like that's like at my core. I feel I've had so many mentors and sponsors and people guiding me along the way. And now I'm in a position where I need to pay it forward. So I really seek out Latino and Latino talent in the organizations or wherever I am at, that I can reach them and help the next generation of leaders. And I know how inspiring and motivating it can be to have people that you see in a senior level that look like you and sound like you. And I think that's important. And I'm a huge advocate for brands to also be truly relevant to the needs of Latinos and Latinas. And I feel like I'm in a position to do that. And I take that very seriously.
And thank you so much for taking that seriously, because I think this is a time to really be an advocate for others, right? Be an advocate for your community. We're going to go ahead and end this with a rapid fire set of questions. The goal is to answer these questions in one sentence or less, really, just a few words. We'll start off with Yvonne, and then we'll pass it on to Michelle, and then to Patricia. So, 2 questions. What's the one thing you're reading, listening to, or watching these days that is a must for the audience to know about? And what are your favorite resources to find insights or inspiration or innovations?
So I'm going to say the one thing that I'm hearing right now, and I try to hear daily, is the Calm app. Just a 10-minute morning meditation in the morning as soon as I wake up really kind of helps me set my day. And I really feel like starting your day with intention is really important because we've all been put into a very hard space. That was more than one sentence. And so I'll let Michelle take over, but I would say the Calm meditation app has been helpful for me.
Sounds good. Michelle?
Well, actually, for me, it's actually quite trivial, but I will say that I like to watch a lot of Hallmark Christmas movies. And the reason why I say that that's important is because I think whatever that is for me. You need to find in this world that we're all living in that was stressful before the pandemic and now has reached a whole new level. You need to find your happy places of that give you calm, that give you levity, that allow you to truly kind of disconnect from it all and relax. And, to me, like things that I know are going to end well and are happy and warm and fuzzy feelings, I go to that now because it feels like there's a lot of toxic and darkness. But, for me, that's what it is. And that is also not a rapid fire answer, but that's the answer.
It's all good. Thank you. Patricia? You're on mute. We can hear you. We're having issues hearing you. But we will go ahead and leave that in the back burner. But I did hear Calm app and Hallmark holiday movies. Thank you all so much. Muchísimas gracias. That was amazing. We're going to go ahead and move on to our next panel. Oh my goodness, that was incredible. That was amazing. 3 powerful Latinas that were just share perspectives with us. Thank you all so much again for joining us and for your time today. You all have left us with plenty of actionable advice and many, many nuggets of insights and inspiration, really. Muchísimas gracias. And once again, felicidades on being recognized as one of the class of 2021 honorees. Next, I'm excited to introduce our second set of panelists from the cohort of the class of 2021. Welcoming to the digital stage is Davina Arye, Alex Alvarez, Art Ochoa, and Dulce Vasquez. So they are already here with us. Thank you all for joining. We're going to go ahead and jump into some of these questions. We'll start off with this question that'll go to Davina and to Art. So be ready, you two. But Davina, Alex, Art, and Dulce, once again, as I mentioned, felicidades on being a member and being inducted into the class of 2021 for the Alumni Society. No doubt you all are extremely driven and exceptional professionals and so deserving of this recognition. What has motivated you over the past year? And also, what is continuing to motivate you today? What keeps you going? Again, we'll start off with Davina and then we'll kick it off to Art.
Thank you, Miguel, and thank you everybody for joining. It's great to be here with you. And Miguel, the motivation over the past year specifically, and very relevant to the topic of this year's class, for me has really been, as somebody in the music industry and specifically in the Latin music industry, has been the enormous transformation that our industry lived because of the pandemic. So, being in a situation where we could not execute in-person events, we could not have music concerts, we could not have, a physical Latin Grammy Awards, which is our marquee property. It was one of these moments, as everybody knows, that in crisis comes opportunity. And so for us, we really found ourselves with an incredible opportunity to reinvent ourselves, to innovate, to look at new business verticals, to create content, to connect with our customers and our fans and our sponsors in a different way, because we couldn't do it in person, right? And so that allowed and opened the door for us to take some risk that may not have been something that we would have done so easily on a normal year. For us to focus our time and our bandwidth on the development of this new area of business. And so it was really exciting, and it continues to be. To answer the second part of the question, which is, what continues to motivate me specifically, professionally, is that the industry, I think we just scratched the surface over the past year and a half. I think, the opportunities now to have a much deeper connection and engagement with the fans and fans and consumers, as Michelle mentioned, are demanding more of brands and of events and of everything, right? And so we are no longer just an awards show. We need to become a passion brand. We need to become, a content creator. We need to connect with our consumer year round. And so it's an exciting opportunity to take all the learnings from last year, reintegrate them into a hybrid version for the future, because we did go back this year to in-person events. This November we had our Latin Grammy Awards. So now we sort of have this double opportunity, and we need to figure out how to keep them both alive.
Thank you so much for that, Davina. You nailed it. I mean, reinventing ourselves, and not only ourselves and our organizations, but really as a society, we're transforming. But Art, we'll go ahead and pass it over to you. What's your perspective on these two questions that I posed?
Sure. Thanks so much, Miguel. And it's a real honor to share this recognition with so many distinguished and impressive colleagues around the country. For me, being at an academic health system that was on the front lines of delivering care, both related to COVID and related to everything else, and I'll come back to that in a second. Over the last going on 2 years now, and we saw one of the very first COVID cases. There was a transfer from LAX back at the very beginning of the pandemic in February at Cedars-Sinai. What really motivated me and kept me going on a personal level is essentially the mission-driven nature of our organization, what we're here to do. My 19,000 colleagues across our academic health system in the region, recognizing that so many while many of us, certainly in the early days of the pandemic, pivoted to remote work, they didn't have a choice. They were, so many of our clinicians were coming in every day before we had a vaccine, before we knew a lot about the virus, and at substantial personal risk to themselves and their families, and that was incredibly motivating to me. I've got people on my teams who are in the direct clinical care world, both on spiritual care and patient relations, and that they came in every day and did their job was really motivating and inspiring. And now what I think about that motivates me is, we're living through the pandemic, which we hope is, sort of the end stage of this pandemic. And, we ended up with the creation of a health crisis in the middle of a pandemic. And that's so many people ended up delaying their care, preventative care, as well during the pandemic, because in part they didn't feel comfortable coming into healthcare organizations. In part, healthcare organizations had to close for certain procedures, and it was hard to access them. And so we've ended up with people who have more advanced disease than they might otherwise have had. And so what motivates me now is making sure that we do our very best to get everyone who needs non-COVID related care back on track. And we spent a lot of time and effort doing that. And I think, particularly underserved communities were the most impacted by this for a whole bunch of reasons, which is, a graduate seminar in its own right. And you guys probably are all aware of those many factors. And so that's what motivates me at this point.
Thank you, Art, and thank your entire team and all of the first responders. I think I mentioned this during the A2A last year, that I really hope that one of the silver underlinings of this pandemic is that we're a little bit more attuned to our health, right? I think that's something this pandemic has really allowed us to see, that our health is really important. I went ahead and asked this question to the first panel, but I also want to get your perspectives on this, on the topic of transformation and how that's affected each of you in so many different ways. The four of you work in fields that are very much reliant on being in person and having boots on the ground. We have everything from entertainment and spirits, healthcare and politics. So I'm curious, from your perspective, what was the most significant change you saw within your industry over the last 18 months? And perhaps if you can also share one lesson you learned throughout this adaptive journey that we're all going through. We're going to go ahead and start off with Dulce. We'll pass it over to Alex, and then Davina and Art. I want to get all of your perspectives on this, but Dulce.
Thank you, Miguel. And, also to echo everyone else's sentiments, I'm so honored to just share the stage with all the talented individuals in this room today. So thank you to all of the work for the Alumni Society. It's such an amazing group, and it's such an amazing organization that brings Latinos together in this way. So to answer your question, so my day job, I'm an educator. I work in higher education, and I am also running for Los Angeles City Council. So these two massive industries that have completely shifted because of the pandemic, the way that we deliver education, there had been this reluctance for a really long time to integrate technology because we thought that the engagement wasn't there. Well, the engagement is there. It's just how you're actually executing it. And there are so many tools. There are so many ed tech companies that have been created over the last 20 years that are finally seeing their moment in how we can do this moving forward. We are delivering education for the most part in the same way that we were doing it in 1920. And that just, the advancements that have been made in society to be able to fast track students that can advance past the structure of a graded system, it's something that we should be able to deliver, have kids reach their full potential in a faster way if that's what them and their parents desire. On the politics side, what I've seen over the last 2 years is actually really exciting that, particularly in Los Angeles, where we have such a low voter turnout, we're seeing higher engagement. We have made in the state of California permanent vote by mail possible. So we're going to see higher numbers moving forward, but also on the day-to-day, right? You logging into city council meetings, logging into Democratic clubs, logging into your neighborhood councils here, being able to do that from home. And I say this not just, I say this as a citizen too, right? Because the fact that I am able to cook my husband dinner and be able to listen to speakers or engage or vote, whereas particularly in Los Angeles, where you have such a traffic issue, having to drive across the city to go to all of these different meetings, I can log into, meetings back to back without having to traverse across the city. But when we think about it from an equity lens too, the fact that you just need a phone or you just need, a computer, whichever way that you're logging in the district that I'm running for, it's the poorest district in the city. It's the most Latino district in the city. It's the least educated district in the city. It's the youngest district in the city. To be able to have a way where they can connect, we have such a high public transit usage in this district. To think about them even going to a meeting, that is unheard of. So being able to have another avenue by which they can engage with their local government, with each other, and with teachers, with principals, with whoever it is, has given us a tool, has made us realize that it's possible. And I think the takeaway from this is, as I think about how we move forward, it's how do you create flexibility? How do you create access?
Thank you so much, Dulce. Creating access to a more equitable system for access that would really allow individuals to be more civically engaged, right? Thank you for that. Alex, what's your perspective on these two questions?
So for me, it's an interesting question because my answer has changed in the past 10 months. So if I think about 18 months ago, and especially at the beginning of the pandemic, what we learned was about flexibility, about agility of thinking, and trying to figure out how do we keep our people safe, how we keep them engaged. But then now it's all about resiliency and flexibility of our supply chains. So, I lead manufacturing across the world for Brown-Forman. So we have to have, we've been learning very quickly that the processes and systems that we had in place were not immune to the challenges of the pandemic and to the challenges that the supply chain has brought us. So for me, it's been, I'm going to call it a dual learning here. One is flexibility and resiliency of the people. The other one is flexibility and resiliency of our systems. Now, you ask, what have I learned and what is my lesson? To me, is for my business and what I do is really to maintain a mindset of expect the unexpected, then prepare for it, and then make sure that you're ready to do it even faster for the next time, because it seems like these challenges are coming up even faster. So how do we do this? How do we make our organizations more resilient? How do we continue to have these engaging discussions so that everyone is working together to get us to the same end?
Having various and multiple contingency plans, right? Thank you, Alex. Davina?
So, from my perspective, a couple different things. I think one of the things that is really important, and Art, you touched on it, obviously, in the medical world. Ironically, although we may not think of music or events as a change for good, we realized during the pandemic, the music and the entertainment industry, and specifically in our case, music, could be something that brought happiness to people, and that brought sort of healing through music, right? And so we do that as an organization. The Latin Recording Academy is a not-for-profit, and we have an incredible foundation that gives scholarships and donates instruments to inner city schools. And so for us, being true to our mission, which was how do we improve communities through music, allowed us to transform, because we don't see ourselves as an award show or a night or a party. We see ourselves really as a mission driven organization. And so that was a great help for us as far as, transforming and being able to transform under that lens and figuring out what that meant in this new, non-physical event world. And we continued the scholarships. We continued, as you said, Dulce, luckily we could continue with remote education. The students could continue to study. And we were able to still engage the artists to have sessions with the kids and Latin Grammy in the Schools events, which is a beautiful platform that the Academy does to bring music and to inspire children in a positive way through music. So that part, I think, from the passion side and how we were able to transform because we were true to our mission, that was really interesting and exciting for us. And then the other thing that I think is exciting for all of us involved with this organization is we really saw that Latin music is no longer, a sort of minority music. We have become mainstream. We have become global, and you can see it on the charts, and you can see it in the streams, and you can see it in the fact that the Latin artists are being booked for concerts in Israel and in China just as much as they are in the States, right, or in Latin America. So really, this shift towards the globalization of everything Latino has been very exciting and very empowering for us and for all of us, I hope. And the fact that we can leverage that and leverage technology, right? So the last piece for me, I would say, very similar to Dulce, is technology. For us, the future is technology, right? What can we do with virtual reality? What we did really interesting backstage stuff with augmented reality. We worked with all the social media platforms, and again, figuring out how to innovate. And I think for across the board, if we don't innovate technologically, we won't be able to move forward, right? Because that is the future.
Yeah, technology and transforming, evolving. Really quickly, Art, I want to get your perspective on this. One lesson you learned through this pandemic?
Sure. One lesson I learned through the pandemic is that we have to lead with empathy. We have to lead with compassion. Our people experienced the same kind of challenges that, in many respects, that our patients were experiencing, that were being experienced in the broader world, and we just have to be compassionate, empathetic leaders. And a lot of people were in overdrive for very long periods of time, whether it was our communications team, community health teams, whatever it was. People were redlining it for very long periods of time, and we have to be compassionate, understanding, and supportive.
Compassionate, and I heard that word a couple of times. Empathetic, I heard it a couple times as well. We're gonna do, in one word, rapid fire question. Each one of you, if you could have one superpower, what would it be? What is it? One word, 2 words. Davina?
I would freeze time. I would have the ability to freeze
Freeze
time.
time. Sounds good. Dulce?
Healing powers.
Healing powers. All right. Art?
Flying.
Flying. There we go. All right. And Alex?
Close to our travel instantly. So click the finger.
There you go. Sounds good. Well, that's been another amazing panel. Thank you all so much for being here with us today and for sharing your thoughts and your perspectives, really. As a member of the Alumni Society and as a class of 2020 honoree, I am truly honored and grateful to be part of such an amazing network, dynamic individuals. Thank you to our speakers once again for sharing your deep personal insights. And with this, I'm going to go ahead and kick it back to Pedro.
Thank you, Miguel. And wow, what an amazing discussions. I want to thank all the members of the class of 2021 that were able to join us today. Thank you for sharing your insights and your superpowers. You're an incredible group of people, and you knocked it out of the park this year, which just proves again why you were selected to be one of the class members of 2021. I want to thank again our sponsors for their support. Thank you to AbbVie, Accenture, AEG, Bank of America, Capital One, Goldman Sachs, KKR, and Meta for all you do to help the Alumni Society elevate the professional Latino community and for making today a reality. Up next is our networking session. And afterward, please keep an eye out for a short survey on today's event. We value your opinion. Gracias a todos. Can't wait to see you at the next one. We hope you have a happy holiday and a happy new year. Thank you for joining us and take care.